What is going on, Colorado Buffalo fans across the Mile High City, across Colorado, across the nation? We are here, the Big Dance March Madness. Well, it's kind of March Madness. I mean, it technically is March Madness, Chase, but the Colorado Buffaloes, if they want to earn their spot in the real big dance, they'll need to figure out a way to try to beat Boise State coming up here on Wednesday evening. I'm Aniello, Piro, Chase Howell. We host the SCO Show right here on Mile High Sports Radio every Thursday from noon to 1. Let's talk about those fighting Colorado Buffaloes. Are you surprised that they did not qualify for the NCAA tournament straight up and are forced to play in this play-in game?
Not really, Aniello. I had thought going into Selection Sunday, right before the bracket was revealed, that was probably the most likely scenario. You look at them sitting on the bubble all throughout the lead up to the Pac-12 tournament, and yes, they had a great run in the Pac-12 tournament, but so did a lot of other teams in other tournaments. There were a lot of bid stealers, NC State, Oregon, in their own Pac-12. There were plenty of bid stealers that would allow to kind of push back that bubble. Colorado State, for example, was not considered a bubble team, and it turned out they are. They're also playing in the first four. So there was a lot of teams that made the bubble push back a little bit, and that's when I expected CU might have to play in the first four. They might have to go to Dayton, but it's extra basketball. I'm not going to complain about that.
You're telling me there's a chance, right? At the end of the day, the Buffaloes hadn't qualified for the tournament last year. If you would ask the Buff faithful out there, would you rather qualify for the first four or not be in the tournament at all? The answer is pretty obvious. You'd rather take that first four. So the Buffs, along with the Colorado State Rams, we'll see what they could do this evening, having a fight for their tournament livelihood. And for the Buffs in particular, Chase, they draw a fellow Mountain West opponent similar to the Rams, that being, of course, Boise State. The Buffaloes, though, you work for Action Network. I do some work for Superbook. We love to play the numbers. The slight favorite, -2.5 on that spread, -140 on the money line. We've got a total of 140.5. What's your overall feel for this game? Do you think it's priced accordingly? Do you think CU is deserving to be the favorite? How do you see this one?
I think it is priced accordingly. You look at the advanced metrics, you look at KenPom, you look at Haslametrics, you look at our own guys at Action Network that are able to predict these games, and everybody says that Colorado is the better team. Yes, Boise had a really good season, but what Colorado has done over the last few weeks has shown that they're one of the top 30-ish teams in the country, and I think they are deserving to be right around a 2-point favorite. I know it's moved maybe 2.5 now. It's growing a little bit. Clearly, people like this Colorado team. A lot of people think this is a team that could make a run if they are able to get past Boise. So I'm not surprised that a lot of the money seems to be going in the Colorado direction as well.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out because, Colorado was a slight favorite against Oregon in that Pac-12 championship game. And I remember kind of breaking it down with you on the show of, hey, Colorado's playing this way, Oregon's playing that way. And even though maybe rankings or whatever it might be might look one way to the outside, that doesn't always reflect how good a team is at a given moment, which I think is reasoning for how this spread is listed, how this game is listed from a betting perspective. So obviously you and I are very familiar with Colorado, KJ Simpson, Cody Williams, Tad Boyle, the whole crew. What about this Boise State team? I'll be honest, I don't think I've watched really more than a handful of minutes or a couple highlights on this Boise State basketball team. What are the Colorado Buffaloes up against in this matchup?
They are a very good Mountain West basketball team, and we've seen how good the Mountain West is. Yes, they might have been a little underseeded, but they were able to get 6 teams into the tournament, and they are one of the better teams in the Mountain West. They're very veteran-led. These guys have played NCAA tournament basketball before. Most of the players that are on this team are juniors and seniors. They shoot the basketball well. They got some bigs that can really rebound. They are a very good team, and CU saw them actually last year early on in the season, and Boise State wiped the floor with them. And obviously that was a very different Colorado team back then, but they showed just how good Boise State can be. And they are a team that did not really expect to be playing in a first 4 game. They were talking about their reaction when they were picked to play Colorado, and it was a lot of shock, and they were surprised that they had to go to Dayton and play a game before they were into the tournament. And that just goes to show how good they were all throughout the season. But the selection committee didn't think so.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting. And I also think that's kind of the beauty of the NCAA tournament is like and you mentioned, I know they played last year, but you get these teams, one in Boise who feels like they're better than maybe the perception of them is outwardly, and a team like Colorado who had won, 8 straight games leading into that final Pac-12 championship game against Oregon. And it was crazy because for a while there, like it felt like the week or two leading up to that championship game against Oregon, like we were all feeling pretty good. right? Like, okay, Buffalo's on track. They get the win against Utah, win against USC, Cal, Stanford, Oregon in that span. And then to your point, a lot of people stealing bids from other teams, like in Oregon, like some of these other programs across college basketball. So I think it's an interesting matchup for Colorado here. And I was actually talking about this with super producer Danny Bailey behind the screen here. The Buffs were running hot. They had won all of those games consecutively. And you and I have talked about this time and time again. Obviously, you want to be playing your best basketball going into the tournament. But I look at that loss to Oregon, specifically if you could beat Boise State, as a little bit of a gut check, right? Humble yourself a little bit. Come back down to earth. Yeah, you've been riding high, but remember what it feels like to lose. Have that bad taste in your mouth and play with that fire against Boise.
I think it could have let their stomachs on fire a little bit. It just looked like a team on Saturday that was very tired. KJ Simpson
Yep.
played 40 minutes every single Pac-12 game. He didn't seem to have the gas down the stretch, and I think we saw that this team doesn't have that much depth, and a lot of that is due to injury, and they just needed a break. They played way too much basketball down the stretch, so hopefully it would have been nicer to have a couple more days of rest, but hopefully a 3-4 day break can kind of reinvigorate this team, and they know that they have to perform against Boise State.
Yeah, I think you bring up some great points, specifically on the depth. And obviously conference tournaments when you're playing essentially every day, right? There's a lot of moving parts that go into that. And obviously you don't want to give a pass per se, but it's reasonable to understand why this team, they looked gassed. They didn't look crisp on defense, weren't rotating as sharply as they had previously in the tournament, among some other things. But I do want to talk about the depth here a little bit because we know the starting five has been pretty solid, led by Tristan DeSilva and KJ Simpson. And now you've got Cody Williams coming off the bench. What have you made of Tad's adjustments as the season has gone along? Because you and I have talked about it on the regular program. Cody Williams, considered to be one of the top prospects in college basketball ahead of this summer's NBA draft, coming off the bench as he nurses his way back from injury. What's up with these rotations, and how do you think Tad approaches this in this must-win game?
Well, I think they found the starting five that they need to have out there, and that does not involve Cody Williams right now. Maybe if he's able to get healthier, maybe if he's able to show a little bit more in these games. And I thought he did all right in the Pac-12 tournament, clearly still a little bit banged up. But they have the five that they need. Javon Hadley has been such a good player for them down the stretch. He has to be starting. Luke O'Brien is such a key piece in what he's able to do on the offensive and defensive glass, and also just bringing some energy on the defensive side of the basketball. So they have found their five. It would be nice to have a couple guards behind them. We haven't seen much Javon Ruffin, who was starting to kind of find his groove there late in the season. Julian Hammond would be a huge piece if they were able to get him healthy. He hasn't played in a month or two, and he can kind of spell KJ, at least make it so KJ's not playing 40 minutes a game. Maybe KJ can only play like 36, 37, but it doesn't sound like he's quite healthy yet. That would be another key piece so that they could go to sort of an 8-man rotation and really get some more guard help.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that you bring up. And it's funny because whether he's tired or not, you're going to get the absolute most from KJ Simpson. I mean, he puts up 23 points, 39 minutes played in that loss to Oregon. And if there's anyone that I think benefits from the rest, it's got to be KJ Simpson. I mean, he's going to benefit the most here because he feels like, as well, Chase, the heart and soul of this team. And it does feel like they kind of go as he goes. He's the tone setter, right? He brings the energy, possession in, possession out, and whatnot. So I do think from a rest perspective, getting a couple of days off leading up to this game is certainly going to bode well for Simpson and company. But you're also looking for guys. The way that I look at it is your two pillars, KJ Simpson, Tristan DeSilva. Those are the two guys that are going to be able to take you where you want to go if you're the Colorado Buffaloes. DeSilva, shaky game against Oregon, 9 points and 38 minutes played with a handful of rebounds here. So those are the two guys. We know KJ likes to show up in the big moment, but you're looking for Tristan DeSilva to be able to match that energy and help set the tone for this Buffaloes team early.
Yeah, I think we figured out sort of what Tristan DeSilva is. He's a great piece. He's a great scorer when he's on, but he's not a guy that you can just give the basketball say, go get a hoop here. KJ is that guy, and they needed KJ to be that guy down the stretch against Oregon, and he just didn't seem like he quite had that jump, that spark that he kind of needed down the stretch in order to get a few key baskets in the last 2 minutes against Oregon. You just can't quite go to Tristan to rely on him for that. Yes, he's going to score. Yes, when he's open from three, he's going to make it, and he's a great shooter, great defender, but he's just not the guy that you want the ball in his hands down the stretch.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to put it. And honestly, it puts a lot of pressure on KJ Simpson, quite frankly, but having watched him in the last handful of seasons, he's built for that type of moment.
This will be his first NCAA tournament game, but I don't think he's going to be scared of the moment.
No.
He's played some big games. He's played against big teams, good teams, and I don't think he's going to be scared. I think he's going to want the ball. The one guy that could take the ball from him is Cody Williams. We saw that when he was a little bit more healthy, kind of in the middle of the season, especially against CSU when they started to make that comeback early on in the year. Cody can take the ball and he can go score. That's when he's at his best, but we just haven't quite seen that from Cody yet.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because I kind of look at Cody Williams as like the wild card. Like if he hasn't perfectly fit in with this team this season, right? Like there's been some great moments, there's been some growing pains as well, but it's like if you could figure out a way to kind of get that car started, right? And lock him in with whether it's as a starter, he's coming off the bench obviously, but if you can get him playing positive, impactful minutes in synergy with the rest of the team, that's where you talked about a lot of people are kind of, look at the Buffs as a dark horse. The only way the Buffaloes can live up to the billing as that dark horse and potentially make some noise is if they get high quality, consistent play from Cody Williams.
Right. You hear people talk about this Colorado team and they say they have a potential lottery pick. They have a potential, what looks like could be a top 5 pick on the roster. And that's what a lot of the national media sees and wants to point out, but he hasn't quite played like that. He is going to be a top 10 pick. It might have to do with how this NBA draft is, but still, they need him to play like a top pick in the NBA draft if they want to make a deep run. And I think getting his feet wet in the Pac-12 tournament could definitely help him. I think he can kind of settle in. He knows what he has to do. He knows that he doesn't have to be the primary guy, but he knows that if he does get the ball, he can take it to the hoop and go score.
Yeah, I'm excited. I know we've been a little more buttoned up and sophisticated here in these last few minutes, more than we normally are on the show. So let's kick back for a couple here. How you feeling, Chase? I mean, we've done the analysis. We've done our work, right? We can kind of unbutton the top collar. How does Chase Howell, the forever Buff, feel about this game?
Obviously, we got to start with the nerves. I'm allowed to be way more nervous than who's going to be on the court,
right,
or Tad Boyle. I'm going to be nervous tomorrow night when that game starts. And that's just watching this team play these big games, watching this team in NCAA tournaments in the past. And we know that a lot has to go right to sort of win these games against really good teams. But looking into the matchup, hearing people that really know ball talk about this game, I do like the matchup a lot. I think Boise State, yes, they're a good team. Yes, we got to shut them down from the 3-point line, but their transition defense is probably one of their weaker things. They're bottom of the Mountain West, and I think that's where CU can really attack them. That's what they've been great at all year long. KJ, Cody, getting the ball in transition and going to the hoop. That's their strength. So I think what CU has as their strengths are a couple things that might be Boise State's weaknesses. I also think I was looking at, can Boise State turn the ball over? Can they get some steals, which CU has obviously shown issues with before, and they're kind of middle of the road in terms of being able to force the other team into turnovers. So I really like this matchup for them. I think that they're a good team. I have one big key though, Aniello. It's the glass. They got to be able to dominate on the glass, and Boise State is a very good rebound team. They're number 1 in the Mountain West in both offensive rebounds and defensive rebounds. So if they're able to dominate the glass, which they have done great over the last month or so, I think they could easily win this game.
Yeah, and I think you bring up some great points. I want to circle back to the turnover discussion a little bit. And I forget the exact number, but I remember listening to an interview or reading something that like Tad Boyle essentially has like the turnover number like 7 or 8. And I believe if they can keep it under that number, their record is impeccable. And you saw a lot of sloppy play. Maybe that was because of being tired, variety of different dynamics. But I think not beating yourself first is also one of the keys here. And you mentioned it because, look, Boise's going to have some advantages that CU isn't. But if you cannot beat yourself, ball control, and get out and run, to your point, in transition, get some easy points, transition buckets, right? Don't like CSU has to play Virginia. I'm going to fall asleep watching that game because of the pace in which Virginia plays with, right? And if you're CU, I know it's a different opponent, but just get out and run them off the court. Don't shoot yourself in the foot and trust your talent. We talked about KJ, we talked about Cody and Tristan. They've got some solid role players alongside of them. On paper, this game lines up well for the Buffaloes.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. If you can get out and run a little bit, you can get comfortable in this game. You can play it at your own pace. Boise State's not forcing to play at their pace, what they want to do. I think if Colorado is able to get out and run, get comfortable in this game, score some easy layups, get some easy baskets, that's going to be the key. And I think they'll be able to do that tomorrow night.
Yeah, no, it's going to be exciting, man. I know it's a play-in, it's a first 4 game, but it's kind of like the appetizer for the actual tournament. Whether your teams are in it or not, the NCAA tournament is like peak sports fandom for the year. So the fact that we get both local teams, Colorado and Colorado State, in the first four at the same time adds a lot of juice out here for the Colorado sports fans. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a good matchup, and always, supporting for the local Colorado teams. Little bias towards the Buffaloes, though, of course. So before we get out of here, Thursday, number 38. Nobody works on Thursday and Friday during March Madness. Like, I remember growing up as a kid, right? You'd be in class. Everyone's got the laptop. The teacher has the projector down. Everybody's watching the games. If you're one of those people, Thursday at number 38, Chase and myself will be down there. They're opening up extra early just for us and just for this watch party, 10 a.m. at number 38 in Rhino. It is the place to be for March Madness on Thursday, which is, in my opinion, Chase, one of, if not the best day in the sports calendar.
I think it's the best day because it's sports all day long. Yes, you have the Super Bowl, which is one game, but sports all day long. So don't forget, start coughing a little bit at work tomorrow. Make sure you're making a little bit of a ruckus, that you're just not feeling very good. Sneezing on people, coughing on people.
Yeah.
You are sick on Thursday, and you're going to come down to number 38 and enjoy all the games with us. We'll probably do a show, some talking as well. And I can't wait. Thursday's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm excited. The food is impeccable. I say this every time. Check out my Twitter at Media by AP. The other thing I'll say about, coughing on some people, I'm sure you could buy like a fake positive COVID test on Amazon or something. Just keep that in your backpack. No one wants the COVID these days.
It's still around. It's
So,
still around.
yeah.
You can still get it.
Lovely. Call out of work, or work from number 38, I should say. We're going to have the Wi-Fi and all that good stuff, and away we go. But the Buffaloes taking on Boise State on Wednesday in the first four for the NCAA tournament. We'll be at number 38 on Thursday. Hopefully there will be a ton of action, but hopefully we get to see the Buffaloes and the Rams continue to play in this tournament as we move forward. But follow my man Chase on social at Chase Howell _. I'm at Media by AP. Make sure to follow us here at Mile High Sports as well. And that's going to do it for us. Let's go Buffs.
Go Buffs.